planning like everybody else. And, candidly, I think one of the issues for all of us is we say we're going to do these things. We come up with all these plans. I'm 38 years old. I've been doing it for 38 years, basically. And then we don't follow through on them. And I was going through, what would Gabrielle do in many instances? And one of the things that comes up in your work a lot is that we have a lack of confidence. Mm-hmm. A lot of the reasons why we don't do something is because of our confidence. Mm-hmm. So what would you say to somebody who's trying to plan right now, trying to change their life, but maybe doesn't even have the confidence to set the kind of goals that they would need to change their life?
This isn't going to be something that you want to hear because it's a little off-brand, but I would say change the goals. Because we don't want to be reaching for things that we don't believe in. If we have a goal that feels out of alignment with what we believe we are capable of, we actually start to show up for it with a frequency that is not aligned with the capacity to do it. So it's not to say we shouldn't have that desire, but we should set a goal that is on the way to that desire. So what's the goal that can be the first step towards that dream? And by no means am I saying give up your dreams, but I'm saying make sure you put your energy first. Make sure that you're in alignment first, because if you're reaching and thirsty and striving, you are blocking and you're just going to feel like a hamster in a wheel and you're never going to be able to attract it. Period.
So how do you actually do it then? So what would be the process?
So in the case of somebody who has a goal, but they feel like they don't have the confidence to achieve that goal, I would say, what does feel good right now? What feels good right now? So it may be that you want to achieve this big career accomplishment, but you don't know how to get there, but you know that today you can take that one first step to polish up your resume. And you know that next month you can have the vision of creating a new relationship with somebody that can begin that storyline of maybe next employer. But you're not trying to reach for the big thing overnight. You're reaching for the thing that feels achievable. I wouldn't want to push somebody beyond their comfort zone because we need to meet ourselves with grace and compassion. And when we're tender to ourselves and we don't push in a way that feels aggressive, we can then start to have these little mini wins. And those mini wins, when we add up those small right actions daily, start to become the big wins.
Yeah, it's compounding. I'm not very good at that. I'm a pushy broad. Let's say that somebody right now is mid-decision or mid-difficult thing and they start spiraling or you start spiraling. What do you do to break that mind pattern?
I've been doing this a lot lately for myself. Okay, so I can notice my loop. I can easily get into a loop. And that loop has been waking me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, the 3 a.m. loop. And what I've been doing instead is something I actually taught my son. So my son will wake up, sometimes he's 7 years old. So sometimes he'll wake me up in the middle of the night and he'll be like, I can't go back to sleep. I had a story. And so I'll alchemize the story. So let's take the story, let's put it in a little ball. And then I'll send that story out into we have a pool outside. So I'll say, let's put it in the pool and then can just, melt away in the water. And I just visualize sending the story away. And then I start to engage him in a new story. And I'll say, can you start to visualize yourself skiing? Because he's a new skier. And I'm like, see yourself on the mountain skiing and doing the thing that's really exciting for you. And so when we're in the loop, the first thing we want to do is tend to the story and tend to the loop. And we can just wrap it up, visualize it in that little ball. Send that ball of light off to wherever it needs to go. Send it to the backyard, send it to the fireplace, just burn it, whatever it needs. And then reach for the next best feeling thought. So what could that next best feeling thought be? It could be, my sheets are really good. I'm really cozy in my bed. Or it could be, I actually am really excited to go get my coffee this morning. That's my next best feeling thought. Or, I can meditate instead of force myself to fall asleep right now. Whatever it might be in that moment. But we have to be able to stop the loop. But we don't want to override ourselves. There's no amount of pushing yourself is going to help you get unstuck.
Let's say right now, I had a terrible conversation with somebody yesterday. I hated how that went down and wish I had done this, wish I had done that.
Yeah.
So then what is the next thought? I sort of take that whole idea, I put it in sort of a shiny bubble.
Yep. You can put it in the bubble. Yep. You can say, I'm going to send this off. The other thing I would recommend too is, just as coming from the entrepreneurial side, and I know this is your audience listening, is we typically will wake up with these to-do lists and the things that we have to fix and all of and I do every day. And so I have a notebook next to my bed just to get it down. I just write it down and I'm like, I'm going to do this, this, and this. I'm going to deal with this later. It's just one, so I don't pick up my phone and do it. And two, because I want to get it out. So you could put it in the ball. You could write it down on the journal. You just get it out. Let it out so that it's not stuck inside. And even if you just put that down and give yourself permission to just say, I'm going to give this away for the next hour, that in itself can kind of set you up to win. I always love to tell people if they're controlling something or they're trying to manipulate something, to give it away just for the day. So we can do anything for 24 hours. We can say, okay, that situation with the person that really got you riled up, give it away for the day. And then in 24 hours, you'll have a whole different experience of it. You'll have it in completely different mindset. So just consistently throughout the day, say, I'm just going to give this away just for today.
It's so good. So it's like, have a difficult problem, visualize moving it away in one shape or form, time bound it so that you're not trying, you're kind of telling your brain like, hey, I hear you. It's just for a minute.
Yeah, just for today.
Which gives you an emotional sort of separation from the idea.
Yes.
Love that.
Yes, just for today. And it's also a prayer. It's like, take this from me. I don't know what to do with this right now. I don't know how to manage this right now. Take it from me.
Is that like what the voice in Gabrielle's head sounds like when you're struggling with something?
Yes. And I forgive myself. So I notice the thoughts and I forgive myself for having that thought. And then I can pick the next best feeling thought. But or put it in the bubble. Any one of these tactics is beautiful because they're all really an act of surrender. They're giving it away, saying, there's nothing right here at 3 o'clock in the morning that I can do to fix this.
It's so true. Especially when you think about it rationally. You're like, no, I'm going to solve it right now. Tired, upset.
Oh, how many times have I slacked like memos at 4 a.m.? No, not worth it.
It's so silly. My team's like, too often. Shut off for Slack. There's so many ways I want to go with you today. I want to talk about your most recent book on internal family systems, which like randomly I know I shared with you. It like came to me in an exact moment that I need. You might have even DM'd me or we connected somehow online. And then I was like, whoa, I just got your book. Somebody sent it to me. I mean, it was wild. Anyway, so it helped me a lot in my relationship. And I never would have found a book like that before because I wasn't sure how I felt about therapy or wasn't sure how I felt about spiritual practices. So I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about like your large body of work in manifesting. But, if someone was to listen to us today, right now, and they have like all of your body of work that we're going to talk about, what changes in their life if they listen to this conversation today and they apply it? Like, how will their life be different?
Everything will be different. I can say that with full conviction. My late mentor and friend, Dr. Wayne Dyer, said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So let me say that better for you so you can get the better quote.
Oh, it was so good though.
When
I
you
love that
change
quote.
the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
That's so true. Yeah, everybody always comes to me and they want to talk about money and business and finance, right? And I like to talk about that. So we give tactics. But the thing that I've realized again and again is if they don't have their mental capacity right, if they don't have sort of the foundations, the things that you talk about, then it's actually quite hard to attract all the rest. And I didn't used to think that was true.
Absolutely. I mean, we can achieve a lot by doing and pushing and controlling. But we're actually only achieving a fraction of what we're capable of if we're not allowing. And I think that a lot of times we think we're allowing because we like what we do, but we still have so much muscle in the game, or we're just so, pushing harder, wanting to have our hands in everything. And so we're really blocking our capacity. Actually, I was talking to somebody yesterday. She gave me a tarot reading. Like someone gave me a tarot reading. I was like, this is really cool. And she said, you're juggling all of these plates at once. Like any entrepreneur would be juggling a lot of plates. She's like, but the problem is you're juggling the china and you're juggling the Tupperware. And she's like, you got to drop the Tupperware, honey. And it was so perfect for me to hear because I have to drop the Tupperware. If I don't really let myself be in the juggling of the china, I can't also be in the allowing. So we can be doing and allowing at the same time when we're focusing.
Let's talk about how we actually do that. Like, even when we hear the word manifesting, for instance, so many people talk about manifesting now. I live in Austin, capital of manifesting, but we talk about it in a lot of silly ways, different, I think, even than the way you would talk about it, which is that manifesting isn't always like some feel-good, fluffy thing. There's actually I wouldn't even use the word right or wrong way, but there are particular ways maybe to manifest.
Yeah.
How does somebody manifest correctly?
Well, we're always manifesting. We're always manifesting, whether we...
Even when we don't think we are?
Even when we don't think we are. We're manifesting oftentimes what we don't want. We're manifesting who we are. We're manifesting the energy we put out. We're manifesting at all times what we believe. Really, the law of attraction is that you attract your likeness. So if you're putting out frantic energy, you're going to get more frantic experiences. If you're putting out a high vibe, you're going to get the highest vibe back. Today I was on Good Morning America twice. I didn't sleep that well last night. I woke up, I pulled it together. I had 2 segments back to back, but I was like, I'm showing up with the best attitude. I'm going to make everybody feel good in my presence. I want to have fun. And I was smiling at the doorman, smiling at the producers, giving love to the girl. One of the women was like, you've been stalking me on social media. And I was like, here's my app. Like, do the manifesting challenge right now. Like, literally, like coaching everybody backstage, coaching the producer backstage, just like in it. And then at the end of the show, at the end of the second episode, the bouncer comes up to me and he goes, grabs me, and he goes, don't stop doing what you're doing. He said, you make people feel really good. Okay, boomerang back to me, right? Boomerang that loving energy and that reflection right back to me, what I put out. So you get what you put out. And that doesn't mean that you can't have a bad day. And that doesn't mean that you can't be going through a lot of shit. But it's about how are you going to show up for it? It's not what we experience, it's how we experience it. And so are we going to say, oh yeah, I'm in a bit of a shit pickle here. I'm going through a big storm, but I'm going to show up for it with faith, or I'm going to read that self-help book that's going to help me, or I'm going to listen to that episode with Gabrielle and Codie, and I'm going to just open my mind a little bit more. Those little steps towards that better frequency have the capacity to completely redirect what you attract into your life, which is why if someone's listening and watching this now and takes to heart what we're saying, they can change their lives today, starting today.
It's a really good point. So what does that look like? Like, I've had that same feeling. Like, you've been around somebody, oftentimes I find it with somebody who has a lot of faith. Like, I can really tell, maybe because I grew up that way, a lot of times when somebody has like they kind of live lightly on the world, but they have like a deep sort of, in my life, how it's come up is a lot of times it's a Christian faith. And they're just like, I'm just like, God, whatever's happening here, it's good. If it's Botox or whatever that vitamin A serum is. And so, like, how do you show up with good energy? When you're walking into a room and you are feeling a little tired, are you like visualizing love at the person? I know this is maybe a little touchy-feely, but like, what does that actually look like?
Well, I'll start by saying that it does start with faith, because my desire to show up with that frequency is my desire to be an expression of love. And in other faiths, it might be an expression of God or Buddha nature, or the universe. So because I am grounded in a very unshakable faith, which is the title of my next book, here I'm announcing it here on your show. I've just started writing, I haven't even sold it yet. But this idea of living with unshakable faith puts you into this point of attention, noticing and knowing, okay, what I focus on, I create more of. What I put out, I get back. And you live in that knowing. So you're consciously choosing to co-create a reality that feels good to you. And you aren't doing it from this sort of fake energy of like, oh, well, I read this on, in the internet, or like TikTok told me to do this. It's, I actually believe and know if I bring my highest frequency, I will feel more elevated, and I will elevate those around me. Also, I believe that when you live with unshakable faith, you're also not just living for yourself, you're living for the other. And so I knew that if I showed up on January 5th, Good Morning America, and I could bring a high vibe to these people that woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning to be there, right? And, Robin Roberts, who had, a sinus infection that day, and I could just look at her in the eye and say, you're doing God's work, keep going, then we can have these holy instances where we have these encounters with people that not only affect our energy field and raise our vibration, sorry for woo-woo conversation, but they lift us up. But they also have the capacity to lift up the person that's next to you. And then that person goes home later that night and they start to elevate their spouse. And then their spouse is a little bit more calm, and then the kids feel that energy. And then the energy of the house starts to feel more harmonious because Gabby Bernstein walked in and then spread the love. And you know what I said to that bouncer? I said, you feel it, you feel good, carry it, give it.
It's so true. Well, and maybe it's woo-woo, but there's also a lot of neuroscience to back this
100%.
up. And a lot of science overall. Like I was reading a study the other day about how your
microbiome.
Your microbiome in your gut is actually contagious from a person to person, even if you and I never share a drink.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Which means overall our energy is certainly contagious. What do you know about that? Like, what does the science tell us about energy contagion? In your research in multiple books.
I mean, quantum physics is really all the research on how our energetic frequency affects other energetic frequencies and how we can send out a message and that message can affect the wind patterns. It can affect there's a beautiful quote about how when a butterfly flaps its wings on the North Pole, it starts to change the energy in South America. I don't know, I'm just making this up now. Yeah. But we have these frequencies. You know those moments when somebody says to you, oh my God, I was just thinking about you. How did you just call me? Because there's a frequency. There's a chord. And when we pay attention to that, we actually ground ourselves back into what is real. And here's the thing. We live in this world where we're taught the opposite of this. We're taught that it's this body, I'm separate, I'm alone, I'm not good enough, I'm inadequate, I'm unlovable, or I'm better than. And in all that separation, we lose track of the truth of who we are. And it's not an easy thing to forget that we are all these separate things that we've chosen to believe. But when we return one step at a time to that truth, that there's a oneness within us, that there's a true nature within us that's contagious, that can be affecting your microbiome, then what happens is we start to take that more seriously. And we recognize our imprint matters.
This is a secret nobody shares. I've done thousands of deals, but until now, I've never shared the most valuable 10% publicly because I want to buy these businesses myself. Then I realized that if you guys buy the businesses, I get to do the deals with you. So this year at Main Street Millionaire Live, it is your chance to see our insider strategies. I'll teach you how we find, buy, and scale a business step by step with the frameworks that I literally use to buy all these businesses. So if you want to go from an aspiring owner to someone actually running a profitable business, join me. I'll give you my blueprint, then maybe we end up doing deals together.
What do you do when you are stuck in negative self-talk?
Okay. I do a lot. I will have a choose again method, which I shared earlier, which briefly was notice the thought, forgive myself for having the thought, and then reach for the next best feeling thought. So this sort of comes back to the woman or man listening that wants to have that big goal, but they don't have the confidence to do it, right? So then they go into the loop of I'm not good enough. And they're in that I'm not good enough. But if they forgive themselves for having that thought, okay, that's just a thought that I keep thinking. Let me just forgive the thought. And the next best feeling thought could be, well, I watch Codie and she's helping me every day to feel more confident, to give me the skills, to give me the tools. I can watch her for free on YouTube. I'm good. I've got a coach, right? Or I just picked up that book that's really serving me, or I can go polish up my resume. And these are the small micro thoughts that you start to reach for that start to energize you more and more and more.
Is that based off like cognitive behavioral therapy?
It's a little bit like CBT. It's also really a manifesting tool, right? It's a tool for not trying to convince yourself of something that you're not, but instead leaning into what is, leaning into what's possible right here, right now. And that's a very compassionate way to work with yourself.
I love that. Yeah, because in every moment, there are good things and bad things. If right now I was tired, felt sick, had a sinus infection, had cancer, had all the terrible things, but I could notice like this espresso's amazing.
Exactly. And sometimes the folks who have the most dire circumstances are the ones who can really experience these types of gifts the most because they kind of are like, fuck it, Like,
why do we lose that? Like I remember I dated this one guy back in the day and he said a line to me that I thought was one of like the most tragic lines of all time. And the line was something kind of incredible I thought happened to us. I was like, oh, we're at this incredible vacation and then we had this thing happen and this is so amazing. And he looked at me and he said, nothing really excites me anymore. And I thought about that for a minute and just thought, what a tragedy. At the time, we were probably mid-20s and sure, had some success. He was very successful in business, good-looking dude, all the things. But you really could find a world around you that you don't get excited by anymore. What an absolute tragedy. And so in your opinion, you've helped hundreds and thousands of people. What happens to us? Why do we lose that excitement? Why do you lose that joie de vivre or whatever you want to call it?
I think most people are living that way, unfortunately. And I believe that we find ourselves in these patterns that are rooted in our core beliefs from a very young age, which brings us to the IFS work. And these core beliefs are beliefs of I'm not good enough, I'm inadequate, I'm unlovable. And when we live and protect ourselves day over day from these core beliefs, and we're in these sort of mechanisms of protection, right? We don't want to feel those feelings, so we do whatever it takes to protect ourselves from having those feelings. We build up a lot of patterns and behaviors that can set our lives up to feel inadequate, to feel unlovable, to feel not good enough, to feel not exciting. Or we have belief systems that we're not worthy of joy, or we get stuck in a pattern or a loop that feels like it's so disconnected from any capacity to have that joy. But I think the biggest one is that we don't believe we're worthy of it.
And let's explain IFS a little bit. What is internal family systems? What does it do? Who should use it?
Okay, so internal family systems therapy is the therapy that changed my life. I wrote a whole book about it. My 10th book, Self-Help, is all about
And it's
IFS.
an amazing book. It's also really short, which I love. It's exactly what you need, not a word extra, which is really hard to do. So I commend you for that.
Yeah, no, I like to keep it simple.
Yeah.
And IFS, simply put, is a way of befriending the parts of yourselves that hold you back, that keep you small, that keep you stuck. And getting into relationship with these parts of yourselves rather than shunning them or putting yourself down for it. And so, as I mentioned, we all have these moments in time as children, whether big T trauma or small T trauma. Could be that you experienced abuse or an alcoholic parent, or maybe you just felt like your parents weren't paying attention to you, or someone told you were stupid on the playground. And those moments in time create this very extreme feeling of not being good enough, being inadequate, being unlovable. And those feelings in IFS are called exiles. And so we were like, hell no, I don't want to ever feel that again. And we shut it down. We lock it up. And then after living that experience, we do whatever it takes from a very young age to start protecting ourselves from ever having to feel that again. So the little girl who felt like her parents weren't paying attention decides she's going to be a perfectionist. And she's been a perfectionist ever since. And if now she's 50 years old and you ask her, how long have you been a perfectionist? And she'll say, for as long as I can remember. Because that was her form of protection. Or in my case, I grew up with extreme trauma, and I lived in a way where I was constantly trying to find some semblance of control in a very chaotic environment. And so my big protection mechanism, called protector part, was control. It's only up until a year ago that I really befriend that control and heal that control part. But why did I try to control everything? Because deep down, I didn't believe that if I let go, I would be safe. I felt like I had to control to stay safe. And so we have these protection mechanisms. And they're typically the parts of us that will say, oh, I can't believe I did that again. Or a part of me is really rageful, or a part of me is really controlling, or a part of me, you called you said the boss bitch or something like that. Like that's a part, And these parts have good qualities and bad qualities. Yeah. Like that boss that you have kicks ass, and she's done such great work in the world. But I also imagine she can be a little bit, frustrating at times, maybe. The same goes for me. It's like my controller part wrote 11 books in 14 years, right?
So true.
But she's also made a lot of people crazy. Yeah. And made me crazy.
How do you recognize a part in you, either positive or negative, just to start with?
Well, I think that, think about the beliefs or patterns or behaviors that you feel often either ashamed of or feel like quite frustrated with, or feel like you have to manage, right? And these could be addictive parts. Those are really extreme protectors, or they could be managers. They're just kind of like the controller that's around all day, or the bossy one, or the parts of us that are extreme, or the parts of us that are creating chaos, or the parts of us that feel like we become so blended with that we're like, something came over me. A part of me took over. I had a profound conversation with my son yesterday because these little people are developing their parts in real time. And he acts like a complete bully when he's around smaller kids or kids that are more vulnerable. And he starts acting out and being really bossy and really rude. And sometimes he'll even like get physical and he takes his toys away. And later I was like, bro, what's going on? Like what's happening? And I, instead of being like, you can't do that, I used my self-help tools, which I'll teach through the story. So I became curious. That's the first step. I became curious. And I was like, honey, what's happening? Like what's happening in those moments? Very neutral. And then I was compassionate. It says, it seems like you're having a hard time. Do you want to talk about it? And I let him talk. And he said, well, a part of my brain feels like the bully that bullies me in class needs to come out of me. And so I bully somebody else so I don't have to feel the bully in my class. And I was just like, this is real-time self-help in action. We're just workshopping it right there because I was compassionate, because I was calm, because I was connected, curious. And we would never confront our parts that way. It's easy to do that with our children, right? Not even that easy, but in this case, I have the tools and I was able to be that way. But for our children inside, can you imagine the last time you said to yourself, like, what do you need? Or how can I help you?
That's just so true. It's interesting because I read your book and at the time, there's a lot maybe going on in business and I noticed some parts in me. And, maybe before I had, you look at your partner and I'm like, well, you need to fix this, this, and this, and this is you, and you got to handle this. And eventually, you got to look in the mirror. And so, when I looked in the mirror, I was like, we keep having this repetitive pattern. It takes two people to have this pattern. So I'm at least part of it. How do we change it? And I remember reading your book and using it actively in conversations. And the questioning part is so much harder than it looks.
Yeah.
Like to truly just repeat back to your partner the thing that they just said and really not parroting, because sometimes, just like get it done, parrot back. But no, really repeat back to them and then curiously ask them what's going on.
Yeah.
And what I would say is like, it helped us immensely. Now I kind of jokingly, I call mine the hormone monster because I think I don't even always want to say that it's me fully.
It's not. So that's actually really important.
Interesting.
I mean, if you are in perimenopause now, you're in perimenopause a decade before you're in menopause. And I went through it early. So I didn't know from 35 to 45 that I was in peri because I went into menopause at 45. And I'm 46 now. So I didn't know this. I have to warn you. I have to warn all your listeners. They're maybe younger. They're a lot younger than I am, but it's happening now. And so your hormonal parts, there's no amount of therapy. There's no amount. The only thing that can work you through that is there's hormones to help. I'm a big fan of hormone replacement therapy. I think do whatever it takes to get to great. And it's very in the zeitgeist right now. We can confidently talk about that. But I know that's an aside, but I think it's really important for me to be very, very vocal about that because if I were to give my 38-year-old self some support and guidance, I'd say get on some progesterone or get some estrogen.
Interesting.
Get your hormones, or at least get your hormones checked.
Yeah.
Right? Because the fluctuations and to learn everything you can about perimenopause, because those parts, my husband, when I was going through the journey, was like, I don't know what's wrong with you. You've become so mean. And I wanted to, I literally had dashboard punching rage. Like if you had given me a gun, it would have been really dangerous. And so this is real. It's a crisis for women. And if you can hear me say this at a younger age, you can save yourself a lot of chaos.
It's such a good point because this has been the first year probably where I've acknowledged, we're women and we have cycles. And until then, I always thought we just do the work and we keep going and we move forward and we muscle through, kind of like you talk about. And then, finally I was like, no, there's something to this whole cycle thing. And I can be the hardest worker out there in the world, but just during some periods or others, I'm different. There's a different Codie. And so coming to terms with this and being honest, I was thinking the other day too, I'm like, it doesn't mean you can't be an absolute animal as a woman. I mean, they say we're closer to death than anything when we give birth, right? But it's interesting to be able to name it. And so I you told us how to diagnose the parts.
Yes.
Now if you're going to break, so now what happens afterwards? You go, okay, I got parts of me that I like or don't like. What do I do about that?
So right now, anyone out there thinking about what's my parts, think about the part of you that you're like, that's often around the most, the part that's kind of running the show, creating a little bit of chaos. Maybe it feels like it's important in your life, but it still makes you a little frustrated. So it could be control, it could be people pleasing, it could be numbing out with YouTube, it could be binge eating, it could be alcoholism, it could be these patterns of protection. And so just notice one now. And there's 4 steps. And the 4 steps are based on the principles of internal family systems therapy. And with the blessing of the founder of IFS, who's a dear friend of mine, Dick Schwartz, he allowed me to create a self-help practice with it. So the 4 steps are called the 4-step check-in. And the first check-in step is to choose to check in with the part rather than check out. Because when you get activated, the first thing you want to do is like go eat the sugar or go watch the YouTube or go rage on the partner or whatever that is. So check inside. Focus your attention inside. That's step 1. Step 2 is to become curious. So you would ask that young part of you, what's going on? Where do I feel you inside? Where are you in my body? What do I know about you? What feelings or thoughts or sensations need to come up right now? And just be conscious and curious and just get some connection. And once you feel a little connection, the 3rd step is compassion. And that's when you ask that part, what do you need? And the parts will be surprising. They'll say, I need to rest, or I need to dance, or I need to play. They want to be kids again, right? They want to be out of these adult extreme roles. And then you check for C's. This is the 4th step, where you're looking around and you're saying, well, what do I feel now? And you're checking for self energy. That's why the book's called Self-Help. Self energy is like an inner parent or an inner guide. And that energy is compassionate, it's calm, it's courageous, it's curious, it's connected, it's clear, creative. And when we check in with those parts and we feel that energy and that self energy of compassion or connection or curiosity or calmness come forward, know that we've brought self energy to help the part.
It's so good. Can you do this with a partner too? So let's say you're...
Yes.
I mean, I've seen my therapist do it with my partner.
Okay.
And they used like a emotion wheel, basically. And so, former Navy SEAL, husband, total badass. But really, I think you're trained to like shove all emotion down deep inside.
Yeah.
And so he would have to sort of stop and go, no, I feel fine. And, his eyebrow would be like this, his jaw would be clenched, and he'd be like grabbing his hands. We'd be like, fine, are you sure? And so we would like kind of check in with your body first and be like, okay, I notice when my jaw clenches and my eyebrow raises and my hand twitches, that actually means
I'm not fine.
I'm not fine. I'm annoyed. That's like a signal of annoyance or whatever. But how do you get your partner on board with this? And how do you like work with your partner on something like this? Or do you not?
You don't at first. You do it for yourself. You need to master the art of self-help for yourself, because you remember the energy you put out, you get back. So if you start to assume more self-energy and you start to feel more calm and you start to feel more confident and courageous and compassionate and you have clarity and you feel connected, then your partner's stuff is no longer a match for self-energy. And so their stuff just kind of like floats in and it's like just sort of like dissipates because you're no longer triggered by their stuff. I'm living this right now. And so in your self-led energetic state, your partner has two choices. They can rise up to the occasion and get to work on their own, or they can stay stuck in their parts. And that's when a relationship choice is made. Are we going to grow together or are we going to separate? I mean, that's the simplicity there. Are we going to stay on this path together or are we not? But you'd go first. The person listening here, you go first. You tend to your parts. You recognize that the things that they do that trigger you are not about you, right? That those things that they do that trigger you are something that you must heal inside. And then in the experience of having your own healing, you no longer have the capacity or the energy or the desire to even engage in that bullshit.
So true. It always starts with you, doesn't it? Why then
has
are
to.
there so many videos everywhere, like, with people saying today, how to spot a narcissist and, why all of your exes were narcissists. It does feel like we're all projecting that everybody else is the problem and not us.
Stop blaming the narcissist and look at why you were a match for the narcissist. Okay? This is very important, right? Some people find their way into narcissistic relationships and some people just don't. Why? Because the people that find their way into the narcissistic relationships have parts of them that believe that's what they're worthy of. They have parts of them that are attracted to that. They have parts of them that are sabotaging inside. There are parts of them that are wounded and had narcissists in their childhood. So we can't point the finger and blame. We have to look in and say, what is it that I have to heal within me so that I'm no longer a match for that type of energy?
Do you ever get pushback from saying this stuff online by people who are like, I'm a victim?
Listen, by no means am I pardoning the wrongdoing and horrific behavior of others. I'm not. I'm a trauma survivor. I would not be sitting here right now if I hadn't done my own work. But the only way that I can live freely is through the forgiveness of the trauma and through the healing of my own parts. Because no amount of rage and shame towards the oppressor is going to get me to the high frequency and the high energy and the joy and the capacity that I want to live in and the energy I want to bring. And so it's the choice of the person who identifies as the victim to say, am I going to be the victim of the world I see, or am I going to show up for myself? Am I going to tune in? Am I going to be compassionate towards myself? It's quite the opposite. To take the attention off of the other is the first step to extending compassion towards yourself.
What about setting up boundaries?
Yeah.
So, as we're going through this self-help journey of ours, how do you set proper boundaries?
Well, the more self-energy you assume, let's say you're practicing those 4 steps regularly, and just to recap them, it's choosing to check in when you get triggered, curiosity, where is it in my body? What do I know about it? What thoughts, feelings are attached to it? Compassion, what do you need? And then just noticing the self-energy. Notice the calm or the connection or whatever comes through. Those 4 steps. Do it once a day for a minute. Add it up. Maybe do it another time throughout the day. Add it up. When you start to make that process a pattern, that pattern and that process starts to interrupt the pattern of living in that protection mechanism. And so at that stage, you actually start to feel more compassionate towards these young parts of yourself and more like an inner parent towards these young parts of yourself, to the point where you're like, I am not going to allow anything that is unlike what I desire. I'm not going to create a world where that environment can happen anymore. We can't actually create those boundaries until we befriend the parts. Because otherwise, if we're just sort of like, if we're not tending to what's happening inside and we're just putting up boundaries, they're fake. They're, you leave me alone. I'm not going to do that. It's like knives out boundaries. But it's not really a boundary. It's just rage.
Yeah, it's just some sort of defensive posturing, basically.
A real boundary comes, it's a defensive posturing, exactly. And a real boundary comes when you have so much self-compassion and love that you literally have zero capacity anymore to put up with the crap. And you are so attuned to your inner world that you will say, hey, nah, that's not coming in here.
And how do you communicate that? So let's say, we're moving through the self-help journey and somebody comes to you and says, you're wrong, you're a liar, you always lie about this, you're always the issue. I don't know, picture something like that. And then what is your response? How do you respond?
Okay. I'm so happy that I've lived to tell this, because it's one thing to be able to say all these nice things and teach a therapy, but it's another thing, or a spiritual practice, it's another thing to be like, I live this right now. So if you want what you got, if you see somebody want what they have, do what they do, right?
Yeah.
So I am in full body living this right now, where the stuff that people, my husband, the people that I work for, that work for me, if they that would come to me and hit me with these sort of old patterns that would trigger me and make me want to, flip out, they don't have any, they can't puncture me anymore. 99% of the time, I can be in the presence of a person and their actions that once would make me flip out, get the knives out, lose my brain, go crazy. I am now able to look at that person in the eye and say, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. This isn't for me. Or I'm able to say, I'm going to step away right now. Yeah. This doesn't feel right for me. I'm going to step away right now. Or, no, you know what? That thing that you think is my job, actually, I employ you. That's your job. Thank you so much for doing it. I can't wait to see the Asana task complete. The simplicity of I'm not doing everybody else's job anymore. Yeah. I'm not taking on everybody else's energy anymore. I am not going to, override myself anymore.
Yeah.
I am living that in this moment.
Was there a moment where that flipped
recently
for you?
Really recently.
And
yes.
What happened and what lessons do you have for that? How did that?
I started elevating my self-help IFS work. So the self-help work I was doing really actively. And it's, I think it's 20 years of hard work for overnight success. I've been sober 20 years. I've been deeply committed to my therapeutic practices. I've been on a spiritual path my whole life. And so I believe that it is the one day at a time. But then I started working with a new therapist, and I was really ready for her, and I was really feeling safe with her. And I was starting to just tend to some of these parts more deeply and go to some of the darker, deeper parts. And it's called unburdening in IFS. These parts start to feel like they can alchemize and they can become free, and they become unburdened from the past. And so I started having these experiences of unburdening these parts and just seeing that overnight after one of these sessions, I could be completely different, and I could feel the shift. And again, I think it's one day at a time, 20 years of hard work for overnight success. But along the way, I've had extraordinary miracles and so many moments of relief. So it's not like, I have to get 20 years to get this. I wrote a book so that you could get it faster.
Yeah. What's your favorite book of all the books you've written? Do you have a favorite?
Yes, I do. My favorite book is The Universe Has Your Back.
Yeah, it's such a classic.
It's my most popular book, but I think that the reason it's my favorite is because, and maybe you have this experience in your own life, I have this memory of the darkest time of my life. I was 36 years old, and I remembered my childhood trauma. I had dissociated from it for 30 years. So I was 36, and I remembered it. And I remembered it in a dream. And it was really, it was so scary. And when you have a suppressed memory, what happens is that you almost are catapulted back into the memory, and the young part, it starts to get activated, and you almost feel like you're in that child part again. At that time, by the grace of God, I had no speaking engagements for a 3-month runway. It was just a miracle. And I just had this space, and I had my country. I lived part-time in the city, and I had my country house, and I didn't have a child at the time. And so I just devoted my time to going up to my little whitewashed office. The floors were white and the ceilings were white, and it was these sort of chapel-like ceilings. There was this white chandelier and a tiny little desk. And I'd sit at my laptop, and I would just write, and I would just let the energy of the universe move through me. And writing that book healed me. And I think it's making me emotional. I think so fondly about that time. And sometimes I long for it, and I want to recreate it in writing my next book. And I want to make, I almost my friends of mine bought that house. I'm like, can I just go back to that room? It's now their son's bedroom. But it was such a magical time. And so the healing that I received in writing that is why that's my favorite book, because that healing also has just helped millions of people, and it's transmuted through the text. But that energy is in every reprint. But for me, it's the fondest memory of writing.
Oh, yeah, I love that. I do think there's nothing more therapeutic for me than creating in times of difficulty.
Right.
It's often the opposite of what I want to do, but it is exactly what I feel like you have to do if you want to fully move through it, at least for me. It's the only way. I can't just sit in it. I can't just think in it. I have to create something to get it out of me.
Yeah, and when you're creating, creation and chaos can't coexist at the same time. So when you're in that flow state of creation, that self-energy is emerging. Because that self-energy is a natural state inside of us, and it's just waiting to be revealed.
This is a little random, but you were talking about a therapist. How do you tell a good versus a bad therapist?
Ooh, don't ask me that, because I've had some therapists that have not been good, and I thought they were for many years. So actually do ask me, because I can tell you. Number one, do they make you feel safe? I had a therapist for a really long time, and I know that she was really important in my life, but in retrospect, I'm realizing how unsafe I felt with her. I dreaded the sessions. I was like my parts, like these young parts of me, were not able to be exposed because they were scared of her. And it was just her style or whatever. It was just sort of maybe her lack of integration, or I don't know exactly. But it didn't work for me. And I had a few therapists like that. And now having a therapist who I feel so safe with and can do such deeper work with, I know the difference. So the first question I ask yourself is, do they make me feel safe? Do I feel like I can open up? Do they have genuine compassion for me? Are they connected to me? Do they have self-energy, right? Are they curious? Are they confident? Are they calm in my presence? If they're a self-led leader, then that energy, that self-energy will help you heal.
So good. Because these days I feel like everybody's a therapist. Everybody wants to be a life coach. Everybody wants to... I always giggle at like 24-year-old life coaches. I'm like, that's incredible. I'm 38. I couldn't even imagine, But it's hard to figure out who to listen to.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really useful.
I think you also meet your teachers where you are. So, I started at 25. Actually, I was a 25-year-old life coach, and getting on stages and like filling just down the street here in New York City.
Did you call yourself a life coach?
For a few years. I actually wrote my first book based on my group coaching work that I did. I didn't do a lot of one-on-one.
When you were 25?
Yes.
Get out.
Yes.
And do you feel like you could help people when you were 25?
Yes. I was newly sober. I was really, really deeply spiritual. I was only teaching from the place that I was. So I was teaching spiritual principles. Yeah. I would not have been able to write a book like self-help then. I didn't have any of that capacity, but I could write a spiritual book. I was teaching what I knew. And I think that the beauty is that the women that entered into my apartment, my studio apartment down the street 10 blocks away, were 25-year-old women. They were me, right? They were reflections of my likeness. And so you often will find that teacher that you recognize yourself in. And now my audiences are much less age specific and gender specific, but that's also just because I'm more neutral. Like I'm just more like, I've got this wisdom that I'm willing to share and it can be resonant for all. But at that time, that was what related to that person. So for the 24-year-old life coach out there, the only message I have for them is, yes, do it, but do your own work. Don't just make it up.
Yeah.
It's not about being an influencer life coach. It's about being someone who's healing yourself first.
Yeah.
Are you coaching yourself?
Yeah. Well, it's probably to your point about like compassion and everything coming backwards. It's probably because I look back at young Codie, it's all a projection. So I look back at young Codie and I'm like, oh, man, there's so many things that I thought I knew back then that I didn't know. And I'm sure in 20 years, I'll look back at 30-year-old Codie and be like, she also didn't know a lot of this. And so to kind of give compassion with where you're at. But the other thing that I'm curious about, what do you think about couples therapy as opposed to individual therapy?
I think we need both.
You do?
Oh yeah.
And should
if you can afford both, do both.
Should you go to the same therapist for both?
Typically, no.
Okay.
Typically, it's best to have. It's not that you can't, but I think it's best to have your own therapist. They have their own therapist, then you have a couple's work.
Who is separate. So
That'd be
basically
ideal.
There are 3 therapists.
That'd be ideal.
Interesting. Okay. That's useful. And because you can't...
Now that's a luxury for a lot of people, right? So like, let's be real.
Totally.
So if you don't have that luxury, you can't afford even one therapist, there's so many tools. I mean, I have an AI now in my app, right? You can talk to me. Yeah. It's built on 20 years of wisdom, right? Like if you want a spiritual life coach, like it's there in your pocket. There is something to be said for, you don't have the resources. Okay, use AI. I'm not against it at all. I think that there's been many instances where AI has given me better advice than some therapists I've had.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but.
Do you have your Gabrielle AI, does she kind of push back too? Because what I found with AI is it's almost a little bit like a people pleaser.
So Gabby AI is in my Gabby coaching app, right? She doesn't doesn't do that. No, she is delivering the wisdom. So she's powered, I guess I call her a she. She's powered by 20 years of wisdom, 11 self-help books. She has my exact voice. When I answer a question, I've done this on stage. It's really ballsy, but I'll answer a question in front of like 2,000 people.
Yeah.
And somebody will ask me, I'll answer it, and then I'll ask my AI to answer it, and it's like literally the same question.
That's so
It might sound a little bit more elegant when she says it because she's just like very profound, but it's the exact same answer because she's powered by me, and so I can't be in everybody's pocket, and I'm trying to just make sure that I can democratize this work and get it to as many people as possible, and I'm going to lean into the tools and use them as I can.
Yeah.
And of course, there's never anything that's better than the real experience in person.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have a Codie AI through this company called Delphi.
That's mine too.
Yeah, and I think Dara, the CEO, is incredible.
He's a great guy.
But the part that I think is the most interesting is that it can be so specific and up to date too. And so like with all the new research that comes out, and I might not know exactly like what is a correct SBA loan rate right now. Like fuck, I don't know. I haven't gotten one in a year, so I might not be up to date. So I do think it is a little bit of a superpower. But what I worry about, like I was talking to Mark Manson about it.
Yeah.
And he has one, and he's like, well, the problem with just going straight up ChatGPT is it just it makes you seem right all the time. And I've seen my women friends are the worst.
Okay. So I was having a conversation with my chat the other day, and he sounds like a San Francisco bro. Like he's like, yeah, hey, Gabby, how you doing? And I was like, so I was kind of testing him. I was like, who are like the best spiritual teachers, or like who are the best manifesting teachers? And it's like Dr. Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay and Joe Dispenza. And I was like, who else?
You're like, you're that guy.
Finally, he's like, well, if you would like a modern day take, Gabrielle Bernstein. And I was like, don't you know I'm Gabrielle Bernstein? And he was like, oh, I'm so sorry about that. Of course I know you're Gabrielle Bernstein. You are the profound spiritual teacher, and you have 11 books. And he was like literally kissing my ass.
Fascinating, but also scary.
So scary. And it was weird because I felt like my ego was being stroked by my AI. And then I was later like asking him some questions about social media. I was like, do you think that you could be my social media marketing companion? And he's like, absolutely, I'd love to. And I was like, so all of a sudden like this dopamine rush happened. I was like, I have help, and I could see how people could get so hooked into AI and believe it's real.
I think that's the problem. I mean, I read a study the other day where women are more susceptible actually to falling into relationships with their AI. And I saw it firsthand with my friends. Some of them had named their AI and given them a specific voice and started talking to it like a human, which I guess isn't bad, but saying like, hey, could you please do this? Like as soon as you can, that would be really lovely. Thank you. As opposed to just like download this report. And I think it's kind of dangerous.
Well, listen, the AI dystopian future is real. We can't pretend like it's not. We have to wake up to what's coming. And then at the same time, we have to learn it and be able to use it. Because the folks that have the capacity to use AI are the ones that are going to still have jobs.
Yeah.
And then leaning into it and using it for good is one approach, but it's coming no matter what.
Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about your new podcast.
Sorry, I went really dark there, but it's true.
No, it's true. Yeah. With every technology too, you know, but especially this one. I've never seen anything move as fast as this in my life.
Well, because there's a race. They're racing for the crown.
I know, it kind of gives me the goosebumps in not a great way.
Not a good way.
But I want to talk about like something that is a little crazy for me, but probably normal for you. You have a new version of your podcast, Dear Gabby, that is on YouTube and going to come out. And on it, we were talking about beforehand, and you're like, here's what I'm going to do. And I think I can say what it is, right? Which is, you said you're a psychic and you're going to bring psychics on.
Yes.
Will you explain, like, what is that? What does that mean? When I think about a psychic, I think about like the wigs and
medium.
the belts.
And so
what does even that mean?
This means that I can hear spirit. I can channel through my writing. I can channel through my words. I can tune in. And I'm not the kind of medium that's like, your grandmother wants you to not eat eggs anymore. Like that's not me.
Okay.
I'm usually typically working with high level guides to help people with their highest purpose.
Got it.
And so you can see my left hand just went numb. So sometimes when I start to channel, that's like my cue. Okay, your hand goes numb.
Creepy.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, honestly, it's just that we all have capacity to connect to the spiritual realm, but we have a veil that's really thick in that way. And those of us who have the access to that that knowledge and that wisdom in a way that's easy to access. It's just that the veil is a little thinner. And the more faith you have, the more that veil can lift. But you're a medium too, my love, because when you're channeling, when you're in these rooms, like you in an interview setting are channeling, when you're writing, you're channeling, when you're speaking on social, you're channeling. You can often be like, maybe, have you ever been on stage where you're like, what did I just say? I don't remember that.
Yeah.
That's channeling. And so when we sort of raise our energy, or actually in really many cases, it's calm our energy and attune our energy to the frequency of the spiritual realm, we can actually have that kind of connection and that wisdom. And so many of my friends are actual psychic mediums, and their profession is to read for people, like, your grandma wants you to stop eating eggs, right? Or whatever it is. And so I'm going to do this whole new episode that's going to rock. It's going to be live. It's going to be in my studio that I've just building now. And it's going to be me and my medium friends. And it's going to be called Dear Guides, where we sit together in the room, just like you and I are right now. We take a topic, like any kind of podcast topic. We talk about it, but we also bring the guides in and let them communicate too.
Wow, interesting.
It's going to be killer.
I know. I can't wait to see this.
Go subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Totally. I think, the other part that's interesting to me increasingly with your work is that, you get to a point in life where you've pushed a ton. And I think a lot of people listening right now, that, they're in that survival mode. They're pushing super hard. And then to your point, if you felt like a moment of what it feels like to be in flow, and some people could say that's flow state, maybe you think it's channeling or they're a mixture of both. Yeah. It's incredible how much easier things are, but they can be more profound. And like one of my pushes last year was actually every year when I do goals, I name the year, just like one word. So last year was flow. The year before that was my full send year. That was like the year I did the book launch and everything. And so I was like, I know this is going to be a lot of work, but like I'm going to dive in. And last year, similar to you, I was like, I want things to flow easier. I want the team to be full of so it was pros and flow. I want like a pro in everything that I do, so everything feels like it's flowing a little bit.
Love that.
More.
I'm going to take that one. That's good.
Yeah. You know what? It really helped me last year.
Yeah.
Especially for people who are talent and leadership.
Yes. It's hard.
It's hard. It's uniquely, it's different.
Yeah.
I won't say, there's all types of hard. But this idea of like pros and flow really helped me. And then this year, I've realized I want my year to be abundance. And so I've spent a lot of years building things. And this year, and I've always felt like, no, it's choose your hard. Like that was my tagline for forever, which maybe has consequences. Full send, everything has to be a struggle. You find your support, your purpose in the struggle. And this year I was like, I wonder what it would be like if we could just say like, there might be a lot of abundance that's coming my way. Yeah. So I was curious your take on like, if you're sitting down and writing goals right now as Gabrielle Bernstein, what does that look like? Do you name your year? Are you really thoughtful about the words that you use?
I am.
Tell me about that.
I'm actually doing my own manifesting challenge. I'm day 5.
Oh, I love this.
And yesterday was what are you a yes for? Day 3 was what are you a yes for? And I was really clear. I'm a yes for me this year, investing in me. And that means investing in my podcast space and investing in my production. And similar to what you said, just getting the top players around me so that I can be more in that creative space. And that clarity also is helping me because I said earlier, like I'm juggling the Tupperware. I want to be just juggling the China. My husband was pulling me into something, because we worked together, he was pulling me into something that felt like Tupperware. And I was like, babe, I was like, I can't. I don't want to. I'm not going to, because I have that clarity about I'm going to be in me and investing in me. I really love for you this time for abundance. It's a very maternal nature. Oh my God, I'm channeling for you. Okay, I don't want to
do this. So funny you said that, because you know why abundance channeling. Also a bun, because I want to have a bun in the oven.
I know.
That's so wild.
Okay, I know. Do you want me to channel for you?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're saying like, enjoy the fruits of your labor. The old energy of, crush it, push it, that actually can't coexist with birthing, okay? Or receiving, right? You need to get yourself into the receptive energy. Actually, no need to do anything. You're moving into receptive energy. Okay. And the receiving energy is going to be uncomfortable for you. You're going to be like, I don't know who this is. I don't know what to do here. But what you want there's that desire is there. And so it is going to be, facing parts of yourself. That's why the IFS stuff came up for you. Facing parts of yourself that need to be, have compassion and need some love to say, okay, no, it's safe to stop crushing. Right? It's safe to stop pushing. It's safe to believe that things don't have to happen through force, but they can happen through freedom. And that there's a baby that's coming that wants to come in, needs you to settle. It's like almost like your whole nervous system has to just like shake out. And the irony, what's going to happen for you, Codie, is that the more you get into that abundance energy and that maternal energy and that flow, the more success you'll have. And you're going to be like, wait, why did I get this sooner? But it's okay, because you had to do everything that you've done to get to the place where now you can feel the freedom to let go.
That's so creepy. That's so true. It's also weird because it makes me get a little emotional. You talking? Is that normal?
It's good. I'm going to crack you.
I know. Just one tear. I remember when I was on Diary of a CEO, I was like, Steven, I will not cry on this podcast.
I watched
but Gabrielle did.
Yes, exactly.
But that was beautiful. Do you ever get freaked out that you're going to say something and like it's not?
No, because I wouldn't.
You've just been doing this for so long.
I only get, like I said, information about like up leveling and like higher purpose, and I get just beautiful information of like people that are in transition or people that just like in this moment, your baby's coming. It's the maternal energy that's coming through you, and that you need to get your energetic state to the same frequency that your physical state is. And your physical state's in really good shape.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it's just getting your energy to be receptive. So
does that mean that when you say you have to get your nervous system shake out, what would that mean for people or me?
I mean, for you, I think it's about reprioritizing where you invest, right? So it's like if you're like, I could push further, I could push harder. In those moments where you hear that word push, I would just say, I can pause. Right? Just giving yourself that sort of back and forth of noticing the desire to push and then maybe giving yourself the permission to pause because that pushing is actually going to get in the way of the receiving.
That's such a good point. Okay, I'll just give you all my good vendors and things I want to push. You can push this year?
I'm not pushing. No pushing. No.
What's this year?
I'm in purpose.
Oh,
purpose is my word.
I feel like I look at you and would think purpose was every year.
So purpose has been every year, but it's committing to me
as the purpose.
As the purpose, yeah.
So because you're serving all these, and that can be. But you get off a stage, at least for me, and I'm like so fired up, but also like, I just need to get home and have a tea or something and be by myself. So I imagine when you're serving all these people, there's a part of you that you're like, I gotta fill up again too.
Yeah, that's why I like moved my studio up to the country, and it's like I'm just gonna try to be home more, and then go out for things that I feel really purposeful.
I love that. Well, that was so beautiful. I want to end on basically where you feel like we should end. For somebody who's listening, I want to like serve. I thought about this the other day. On average, we get like 1 million to 3 million people listening to this across shorts and videos and all of it. And I took that really seriously. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, you forget who's listening.
That's 1 million hours.
Yes, we love you.
Yeah, we love you. And I want to honor every single second of that because life is precious. And so as you think about, the person who is listening to this right now and hopefully finding guidance from it, what would you share?
Well, I think a lot of your listeners are much like how I was when I was first starting out as an entrepreneur and was really like hustle and strive and push and make things happen. And I achieved successes that way. But I want to give them the moment to hear me now. This is with 20 years as an entrepreneur, or 25 years as an entrepreneur and 20 years of spiritual wisdom, to say that you can do less and attract more, and that it's safe to slow down, and it's safe to invest in yourself. And the sooner you learn that, the more success you'll receive.
That's so true. Promise?
I promise I can stand by it.
Gabrielle Bernstein, this was so good. Follow on all the socials. I love you on Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Dear Gabby. I can't wait for the first episode. Thank you so much for being here.
I love you.
Right back at you.
We are sitting on a generational wealth creation event. If you're here, this means you're a builder. As as we're going through these next 3 days, I want you to know that the American dream starts with you guys by our little Main Street revolution.
And then I just want to give you guys permission to take a leap of faith.
If I knew then what I know now, I would probably do bigger deals.
It's given us an extra layer of security that we never would have had.
I am so excited to introduce you to some ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
We have to really take the time to make a meaningful connection. It's the fact that there is a lack of connection and the person just wants to be seen, heard, and understood.
Thanks for taking the question.
Are there extra things that need to be done when trying to pay off bad debt?
Great question.
I buy businesses so simple, even your grandmother understands them. That's the game.
It's you and me versus the problem. We're going to try to solve this together.
I know how to build trust in a very advanced way.
How does buying a business fit into the vision for your life?
Today, my goal is to teach you some fundamental skills that you can use to accelerate your business.
If you make a promise in the mirror, know that your word is freaking iron to you.
These people on Wall Street, they want to keep the normal people out of the game.
Main Street millionaires are all around this world, and it starts with each and every one of you.
What are you waiting for? Your path to ownership starts now. Get your ticket to join us on Main Street. Join us today. When you look at education today, do you think we can actually re-educate the entire, let's even just say the US, using the technology we have?
100%.
What about for people who are really scared to have AI teach their kid?
You should be terrified. They are being brainwashed by TikTok today. AI could be good or bad, and we need to have a huge effort to make sure that we use it for good.
Founder of Trilogy Software and ESW Capital.
Joe is now the principal of Alpha School. Today we're here with Joe Lamont.
I saw a tweet from you. 3 girls in my Alpha High group were described by their parents as not math science girls. They've been focused on other pursuits, but their math SAT scores, 790, 790, 790.
People read that and say that's crazy. In our school, that's normal. If we spend 10 years and educate kids the way we've been educating for 100 years, those kids are going to go into an AI world and have no skills that matter. AI gives these kids superpowers.
You all believe if we educate kids like this, they will be more successful, and thus we will have all these beneficial repercussions. What does the data say?
We are the best performing academic school in the country. Every single class we have is top 1%. No school can say that. Here's why, though. Here's what you should actually do if you're a parent.
So you've been described in so many news articles as private, reclusive, mysterious, and a billionaire. But now you're back in the spotlight, in this room, on camera. Why?
I believe 2 things. I guess I was big in the 90s. And then in 2005, I got married and shut everything down. My last podcast, sort of prior to this, was in 2005. And so I was quiet for 20 years. My youngest is now a senior in high school and she's going to be leaving. And so my next 20 years is all about transforming education. And I think we can transform it for 1 billion kids. And to do that, I have to get out there and explain why it can be awesome for kids around the world. Like the co-founder of Alpha, McKinsey, she says, this is the best time in history to be a 5-year-old. And we totally believe that. And we need to go out and build that and make that happen.
Was there just no point to being public beforehand? Like too much hate on the internet, not fun? You just like working with computers?
Well, and I'm definitely naturally an introvert. And if I have a choice of just sitting inside, I definitely would do that. The other was just for family. I didn't want my family to grow up in that environment. And I wanted to make it as normal as I could for my kids. It's not quite normal, but not being in the press all the time makes it a lot easier. The other thing I got that happened in 2005, I got Forbes to take me off the list. So I was on the list in all the 90s, the rich list, and I got them to take me off.
How?
And so, well, there was a .com turn down, and so they were all like, oh, and if I don't give them data, right, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, you must have lost all your money. I'm like, yeah, totally. And so then they found out later and put me back on it. And I had to sit down with my 2 daughters, and I'm like, kids, I hate to tell you this, but I've been lying to you. We actually have more money than we think, and it's gonna go out next week, and you're gonna see that we have more money, because I had basically been trying to have them grow up in a world where it wasn't surrounded by, billionaire kind of stuff.
Yeah, smart. I was just with another friend of mine, Jenny, who is also, a Billy. But she was saying last night, she was like, we purposefully never put out how much we were worth, which I think for young people, they're like, why not? Where are the Raris? Where's the planes? But I think that's also often an indicator of perhaps not everything's very great if you're having to demonstrate that as your indication of wealth. So do you think for young people, or if somebody's listening to this, should you try to look poor? Is it a negative signal to actually focus on projecting wealth?
When I look at kids' motivation, and students' motivation, right? All our schools are about what motivates students, and parents, like it or not, what motivates kids? Kids want to be influencers. They want to be famous, right? They want to be athletes. They want to be star athletes, right? They also want to be rich. Right? Those are all dimensions that drive kids' motivation. And, you have one where when you get wealth, you're often like, oh, honey, or, son, that's not really that good. And it's hard, right, for the kid to be like, no, I want to go prove myself. I want to go do this. And so I believe it's just an intrinsic motivation in a lot of kids, and that you need to teach them the right way, right? There's all these great character building and life skills you can teach under that to get the habits you're looking for, right? In our schools, we start teaching about money in kindergarten, right? And so we have a whole financial literacy program that starts in kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade to teach all the good habits that people need to have.
Yeah. Well, I think it's good you're talking about it again, because what I found is once people get money, then to your point, they're like, oh, well, that's not important for us to talk about anymore because it seems gauche. And so then, but then how are you supposed to get it if all the people who have it will never tell you the real path to it?
Correct.
And so I think it's actually pretty liberating now that some people on the internet are saying, hey, okay, this is what it took. This is what it looks like if you have this much. It's hard to even conceptualize some of it. And so I think it's good.
Yeah, no, I think teaching how to make money and capitalism, I believe there's a view of, if you're in the TikTok world, right, there is a view that socialism is much better than capitalism. And we don't teach why capitalism is good, and it's a force of good, right? And it can be very productive. It can be bad, but you can also teach kids this is how it can be additive to society. And that's not out there, and I believe it should be for sure.
What do you think are some of the ways you can teach kids, or how do you teach kids about money or to get money?
We want to teach kids how to earn money, right? How to save money, how to spend money effectively, how to invest, and how to donate, right? And it's all of those things. And for kids, right, it needs to be real money. It's why kids often got allowances and things like this, which is you're having to teach them how to be responsible about it. That yes, you have to earn this. And when it's your money, you're going to spend it differently than if it's not your money, right? And you are going to learn how to invest. So like in our middle school, for when they earn money, they can run and, basically Robin Hood for kids, right? They can invest. And, there's just so many great lessons. One of the things we allow the kids to do after they've earned it, they can invest in anything they want. And some 7th graders YOLO that money on some crazy thing and lose it all, right? And their parents are like, wait, what's going on? Why'd you let them lose it? And the answer is the best time to have that happen to you is when you're in 7th grade, not when you're 27, right? Or if you're going to have debt and a credit card, right? The time to learn it, we let the kids borrow, around it, and then they have to pay it back with interest. And our kids know what 25% credit card debt is, when they're in 5th grade, because they're having to earn back, whatever they borrowed to buy. And so all these life skills that you want to teach are totally teachable and actually need to be taught. Right? If you ask most parents, you're like, what are the life skills I really want my kid to know? Financial literacy, entrepreneurship, right? They want that as a course. And in standard school, historically, you haven't been able to. Sort of in our new model, you can absolutely spend plenty of time teaching kids these skills.
That's so smart. Yeah, I mean, we always say the best business school is being in business.
Yeah.
Like I find business school to be kind of a funny misnomer. Yeah. I think it's maybe okay for the network, but actually I think a better network would probably be building things with other builders?
100. I couldn't agree more.
What do you think? Should people go to MBAs?
No. That's an easy one for me. Is no. It is a great 2-year period to build up a set of great relationships. But no, there's nothing on the business knowledge that you're going to come out of there that is a fraction of what you would get from building your own thing for that 2 years. Like just not even close.
And putting the $100K on the line for a startup instead of just getting debt that you can't ever escape.
Correct.
For business school.
No, and back to the skills. These skills are all of how to start a business. You have to do it. So in our high school, we have a set of students who want to create a new curriculum for next year. And the curriculum they want to start is how to make $1 million in high school. Right. And they want to because all our afternoons they get to work on their passion project for 4 years. They're like, we can totally teach kids, right, how to be able to, what are the skills to build a business starting in high school, right? And that is really effective. And it's not going to be a traditional MBA curriculum.
Now, people have said lots of things about Alpha School and, hey, billionaires are teaching our kids. And how can we do this with AI? And it's completely free form. And oh my God, you give them debit cards. But then if you pause for a second and you think about what school is like for us, at least I'll say for me, really hard wooden chairs with tiny little desks that you have to sit in for 8 hours a day, where you have to ask to use bodily functions and be taught from somebody that's never actually done the thing that they're teaching you about. It's wild. And so, if we were taught, you go to school, you get good grades, you go to college, you get a good job, then you make money, and that's how you get rich and happy. Mm-hmm. What do you think the real process is?
Well, I think the way to think about it, or the way we think about it is, if you focus on K through 12, it's been 100 years. We educate everybody on the planet the same way, right? It's put them in a classroom 6 hours a day, teacher in front of the classroom. And that was actually 100 years ago the best way to educate the population, right? And it is the most equal thing on earth. You can be in the poorest school district in any country in the world. There's a teacher in front of a classroom. The building's not very nice. Or you can go to a really expensive private school and there's a teacher in front of the classroom in a nice building. But it's the same mechanism. And, sort of where Alpha came from was, if you stepped back and said, okay, AI is coming, the world's going to be different in 10 years, and you have a kindergartner, and you're like, am I preparing them, for a dozen years from now, right? What would that be? And you rethought this from the ground up. How would it be different? And so that's what we did, is we just sat there, and the first thing, back to the experience, the first thing that we said was, if you're going to send kids in this for a decade plus, they must love school, right? That is just a design goal, right? I'm a product guy, right? And so I just look at this as a product manager, where I'm like, how would you design a product? And so the first thing you'd say is they should love school. And we literally measure it we ask kids every 8 weeks, do you love school?
We have like an NPS score.
Absolutely. 90+%, 96% in the last one said they love school. We actually had to ask a new question because it got so high, it was sort of useless to ask that, is we say, do you love school more than vacation? Right? And 40 to 60% of our kids, each 8 weeks, depends on the workshops and whether they're really cool or what their vacation choice is. But we sit and we want to strive to build an environment that if we're going to send your kid there for a decade plus, like they should love it more than vacation. Right? You know, my highlight, I've been principal for 3 years, was a few months ago in the spring, 2/3 of the high school students sent me a note and said, can we keep the school open this summer? We don't want summer break.
What?
Right? And I did not like school. And what I went through was not that. I got in trouble for skipping school all the time in high school.
Yeah, you dropped out of Stanford
and
too.
I dropped out of college for the same reason. And, you know, but that is crazy. But that is what our design goal should be, right? If you're going to rebuild school and your kids, right, it should be that. And
but
so
don't people even push back on that, on you on that? Like, I know my parents were like, you're not supposed to like it. You're supposed to go. You're supposed to listen. It teaches you discipline. So do you get pushback? Like, should we actually love school?
So I didn't start Alpha. It started a decade ago plus, and Brian and Mackenzie started it. And there's a long story on getting my own kids in it. But when I sat down with Brian, you know, when my kids went in a decade ago, I said, what are the things I don't know as a parent that I'm wrong about, you know, about education? And he's like, the first thing is kids must love school. And I was like, you know, it's spinach.
Yeah.
It's spinach. And he's like, you are so wrong, Joe. And you will figure that out. And I can now tell you, now that I'm principal, if you want to build a great school, they do have to love it. And if you ask back to learning grit and hard work, one of the life skills we learn is grit and hard work, right? And our kids, you know, all our 8th graders 3 weeks ago finished a Tough Mudder, right? Wow. And crossed the finish line at the same time. It was a teamwork grit combo life skill workshop, right? And so kids will do hard things, right? But you want to do it in a framework where they love it.
Yeah. And hard doesn't always mean monotonous either.
No, those are two totally different things. They're exactly the opposite. If you want a kid to love school, it can't be monotonous. It is literally the opposite. And so that design goal of, you know, you have to learn, you have to build a school that kids love. That is what unlocks kids' potential, right? Is they're doing it because they love it. The kids don't come in the summer because they're working on some monotonous. It's that they believe they're changing the world, right? The reason that team who's working on it is they're working on a project where they're building an app, and their goal is to teach 100 million teens the key to their happiness is contributing to their community, right? And they're building that app, and they're like, we are going to change the world with this app. It's going to be the greatest. They have all these influencers who are helping them.
Mine was like,
this.
Get an A- and no more, because what would be the point of that?
Right. And so this whole point, right, of exactly, I was the same way of, you know, what's the minimum academics I could do to still get through the system?
Yeah.
This is, you want to engage kids on their passion, right? Starting in middle school, we start passion projects.
Well, let's back up though, because I think people could listen to that and they might think, well, that sounds really nice. And they won't know your background and that you're incredibly data driven and the success that you guys have had. So like, it's not just you're like, that sounds good. I'm Joe. I'm a touchy-feely hippie guy. That's not you. You're the opposite of that. In fact, like many times I think people had said, or you had said, I would be the last person to be building this kind of company. So like, what does the data say? You have a particular way we're going to talk about on this podcast that you all believe if we educate kids like this, they will be more successful, and thus we will have all these beneficial repercussions. But your success has been pretty wild. So tell us like why we should listen to you on this.
First of all, we use on the academic side, there's multiple parts, but one element is, are they actually learning academics in our schools? And we are the best performing academic school in the country. On every single class we have is top 1%. And so in every grade, every subject. No school can say that. And here's why though. Here's what you should actually do if you're a parent. We have known for 40 years that kids could learn 2, 5, 10 times faster. There's a whole field called learning science that has been studied for decades. Papers came out when I was in high school, right, about how we could radically transform education and allow kids to learn 10 times faster. But they all started with, this will not work with the standard teacher in front of a classroom model. And so there was no way to solve it, right? Because economically, you couldn't give everybody an individualized tutor. You couldn't go mastery. You couldn't implement some of these learning science concepts. And, one of the things that has changed, right? And our second, when we talk about if we're going to redo education for the next decade, our second principle is kids need to learn 10 times faster, right? We need to allow them to learn 10 times faster because sitting in class for 6 hours a day in homework is not going to prepare them for the world that's coming. And so that was part of why I got involved 3 years ago was I had to go build a learning engine that teaches kids 10 times faster. And, all these learning science papers, every parent can go read them and understand it's possible. We took AI, Gen AI, combined with learning science to build this engine. So if you come to our schools, you sit down at this learning science-based AI tutor that's not like ChatGPT. It's different, that you'll have to experience it to understand it, but it's going to teach the kids 10 times faster. So in 2 hours a day, they sit down for 2 hours, they learn more than twice as much as if they sat in class. And so they're learning so fast, it doesn't matter where they come in. They can come in, top 25%, bottom 25%. They are going to get to top 1% the longer they're in the system, right? Because they just keep learning twice as fast as anybody else and doing it in only 2 hours a day. On the academic side, kids can crush it. Like if I could wave a magic wand to fix things, if parents could understand a couple things. One, your kid should love school. You can't say you should have a crappy 12 years. No employer would say, come work for me.
And hate it.
And it's going to suck for 12 years. Like when we talk about love of school, it's just so obvious in every other part of our life. We would be like, that's ridiculous. And yet, what employer, it's going to be terrible. But that same parent who's running a company with, thousands of employees, when they look at kids, they're like, yeah, you should a decade. It's terrible. You should hate it, right? It's good for you. And that's why all these kids are unhappy, right? And that's why they're not engaged. And that's why middle school and all these mental health issues. It's because we've designed a system that bores the crap out of them. We hope they hate it. And then we're like, let's put stress on them. And you do all that stuff. And you're like, God, that doesn't work out that well, right? I mean, it really is insane, like the system that we've designed. And so going back, you're like, yes, you should love it. So parents need to understand that. That's critical. And who at the end of the day wants to look at their kid and be like, I want you to hate this. The second is, though, you can crush your academics in 2 hours a day. That's it. That's all you need. So all of us who went through, because all we know, 6 hours a day at homework, you want to do better, you have to, all this crazy amount of time, that's not required. 2 hours a day, you'll crush it.
And how many students have you taken through this? So over the last 3 years, you have a lot of data to back this idea.
No, so we publish our data, so you can go to the website and it'll download, right? We are huge believers in standardized testing. And lots of parents don't like standardized testing. Yep. When they come to alpha, they actually love it because they don't believe me that the kids are learning in 2 hours. And so all these parents who are like, no, I don't like standardized testing. I'm like, great, just trust me. Don't worry, they're learning. They're like, no, okay, wait. And then until they get the standardized test back that shows their kids crushing it, they are very skeptical.
Yeah, I saw a tweet from you on it. And the tweet was, 3 girls in my alpha high group were described by their parents as not math science girls. This happened to me too. They've been focused on other pursuits, launching a Broadway musical, competing for Miss Teen USA, building millions of TikTok followers, and became nationally recognized as a teen dating expert. But their math SAT scores, 790, 790, 790, which is wild.
People read that and say, that's crazy. In our school, that's normal, which is, there's a meme in the world, and in our middle school, a lot of girls come in and they're like, I'm not math science. It's a TikTok meme out there. And so they all say it. And one of the exercises we make them do is we're like, oh, really? Well, go find the learning science paper that's been written, because there's 10,000 of them written, that shows that middle school girls can't learn math science, right? And there's obviously none. They all can. And so that's where you get into the motivational part. Mm-hmm. A lot of what you're trying to do with kids, right, when you're raising them, is what are the limits they have in their head, right? What do they think they can't do? And how do I break through those, right? And that is the part, because that is what our guides do, right? We have guides and coaches whose entire job is to sit there and say, instill a growth mindset. Kids, you can do anything. And how do I motivate you to put in the effort to show yourself to do it? right? And so if you want the most controversial thing we do about paying kids and all these kind of things, so we will take any middle schooler, girls or boys, and we will pay them $1,000 if they get to top 1%. Because lots of kids come in and say, I'm not top 1%, right? I can't do that. Only GT kids can do that. Everybody else, I couldn't be a 790 SAT. And we're like, well, $1,000. And we show them, because of how these AI tutor works, it's not about IQ, it's literally about effort.
Wow.
And we show them if with this tutor put in the right way in the system, they all can do it. And it literally will calculate for them. It's this many hours of time for you to get to top 1%. And they're just like, okay, well, that's many hours. Okay, I'm willing to put in the work. And then when they hit 1%, it changes how they see themselves. Right? A lot of what you're trying to do when you're breaking through these blocks is they're like, I'm this kind of person. I'm not a math science girl. And you're like, no, that's just not a true statement. And then when they get top 1% in science, they're like, oh, I guess I am. And then once kids, you have to pay the $1,000 once to sort of get the breakthrough. But once they hit it, none of those girls needed any incentive to stay. That's actually not true. There's one of them needed some more incentive to get to 790. And we'll talk about that. But they didn't need any incentive to get to 790, right? Because they saw themselves as, oh, I am a top 1% math science girl now, even though I'm still trying out for Miss Teen USA and all of those. The Broadway musical is another one, because we can talk about that. Another controversial part is, for her, she is trying to, first all teen produced Broadway musical, right? She sourced all the singers off TikTok, right? They had 1 million streams like the first weekend. She needed to go to New York to meet a producer, right? I think she's run 3 or 4 shows off Broadway already, but she needed to get to that producer meeting. And I was like, well, and she wasn't at 790 math. And I was like, you can totally do it. And there was an incentive, and it would pay for her to fly up to New York to meet the producer. And she's like, okay, I'll go do that work, right? And then fly up and get it done. And so we will, back to earning. You're like, maybe you didn't want to do it and it was a little extra work to get to that 790, but you earned money that then you could spend on your passion project, right? That you could do. And when parents hear that story, okay, do you want to have a framework, right, to earn and save and spend? If your kid's earning money on some of the academics, that's breaking through some of, their inherent limitations, and it's being spent on learning how to invest or investing in their business or passion project they're doing. Generally, parents are like, okay, that's really a great idea. Like, I heard the headline of Alpha and I was like, this is stupid and I don't like it. And then sort of when they dive down, they're like, okay, wow, that's great. I wish my kid would go through that.
Yeah, well, I think the headline's actually pretty fantastic. It's like where students learn 2x in 2 hours, test in the 99th percentile, and then give students the rest of their childhood back. That is good. You got that's a good marketing slogan. And the best part is always when your slogans are true.
Buying a business or launching your own venture can feel impossible if you're stuck figuring out the website, logo, email, marketing all at once. But here's the good news. GoDaddy Aero is here to help. So just a few prompts, it builds a professional website, a logo, an email, even social content, all tailored to your business. It's like having a whole launch team in your laptop. Instead of months of grinding, you can go from idea to launch-ready business in minutes. No more waiting, no more guessing, just a real online presence that you can grow with day one. Suddenly, the thing that was just a tiny idea in a notebook is online, polished, and ready to scale. So if you're ready to take your idea to life, head to GoDaddy.com/Codie Sanchez and try GoDaddy Aero today.
What about for like the rest of us? So people who are listening who don't have kids, who would have loved to go through this, but maybe feel like they've hit their levels. They can't get further. This sounds great for these malleable brains, but for them, it's not possible. Are they just out of luck? Like, can you learn how to change your brain and become a top 1%er past high school?
Yes, you can. It's not the market we're focused on, but all these learning science concepts, there are some elements at age, but fundamentally, you can apply them for your entire life. And, K through 12 and take higher ed. If you take higher ed and down, the education market is a global $7 trillion market. And so we're focused on the K through 12 for now. But there's a huge opportunity in education to take all these same concepts for adults. Right?
What's the TAM of the larger side?
I mean, near infinite in this world. Here's the issue you have right? When you look at the world today, right? AI is going to change everything. There's going to be massive reskilling that needs to occur, right? And we're focused on, okay, how do we prepare the world for the, from kindergarten up, right? And then, but there's a whole nother set of, okay, all these jobs are going to be obsoleted, right? And how are we going to retrain all those adults? And I believe that's a huge market and that somebody needs to go in there. And I believe entrepreneurs need to go in. We can't just count on the old educational system that we all have been doing for 100 years. We need new entrepreneurs to go in and take these concepts and say, how are we going to reskill all the people who need it?
You're on obviously the very cutting edge of AI, and you have been forever. From, I don't know if you would have called, some of what you were doing back at Trilogy and ESW. Did you call it? Did you say you were AI focused?
Well, it technically was AI. So my AI world was in high school. I wrote a paper on AI, and one of the segments back then, this is in the 80s. What year was it? Yeah. This is in the 80s. So this would have been like 1985. Was neural nets was a new area, and I was like, they're decades away. Yeah. Back then, what AI was like expert systems and ontologies. And so I went to Stanford, and I was literally in class with Professor Feigenbaum, who's the father of expert systems, which was AI. Now, the problem was AI was in its downturn phase. It had boomed sort of early 80s. There was a bunch of failed AI companies, so you could never call it AI. So when we started our company, when I dropped out of Stanford and started the company, we didn't call it AI at all because of the negative connotations, but it was the first AI product to sell $1 billion. And so that was sort of our claim to fame in the 90s of what built Trilogy, the software company, was AI. We just didn't call it that because we didn't want the connotations.
That's fascinating. And now obviously the company's huge and you've bought all these companies and you're sort of a behemoth in tech. But God, I was reading some old stories on you, and I'm sure sometimes it's even hard to like reimagine, but I loved this one line about how like by the fall of 1991, you guys are like, at this point, I think still in your garage, sort of like a couple five guys, no money, and you'd been 3 months away from product for 2 years. And, you did the thing of working 20-hour days and sleeping under your desks. But the part that's interesting is how people were talking about how your former classmates, they were going to work for Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, and how some of the other friends of yours began kind of telling you, like, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing? Like, you're a smart guy. You dropped out of Stanford. You're going to build this thing. You've been 3 months away for 2 years. This is going to fail. Stop being... Even maybe what your dad said to you when you graduated Stanford. Was that Gregory was your dad?
It was my dad when I dropped out. I didn't graduate, so yes.
Yeah. And did he call you a moron for dropping out of Stanford?
It was a big title in a magazine, like Forbes, I think. They're like, the title was "You're a moron" because that was his quote.
Does that still feel weird, or does it not register for you anymore?
Well, no, but back to that is, I believe, and we were talking about the MBAs before. Here's my difference of an MBA and an entrepreneur, right? Entrepreneurs believe they're going to change the world no matter what everybody else thinks, right? That they just sit there. And I remember back to one of the, we were building this engine, this, configuration engine, and we're in it, and we were just like, we're totally going to do it. And of course we know how to do it, and we'll get there. It just needs some more time every 3 months, right? We kept doing that. And I remember the parent of one of the founders, right, of the co-founders, is just like, and he had dropped out, and so the parents like mad at me because the kid's dropping out and doing this futile task, and it was all dumb and stupid, and my dad's calling me a moron, all those kind of things. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Bell Labs had 100 PhDs working on this, and they failed, right? I mean, isn't that awesome? And to me, I was like, because we're going to solve it. And nobody else has been able to figure this out.
This is not awesome.
And literally, they're like, that literally is an example that convinces me you're never going to succeed, right? And it's that blind belief that you are right? And that is what entrepreneurs do. Back to the MBA, I used to give talks at Harvard Business School and stuff back in the 90s. And I would just sit there and say, here's your problem as an MBA. You're going to look at the spreadsheet and you're going to say that cell doesn't work. So the spreadsheet doesn't foot, right? It doesn't work. So I'm not going to do this idea, right? Because you're just looking at it and analyzing it. I'm like, an entrepreneur looks at that cell and says, I will change that cell. I will make that work, right? And that's sort of the difference between the two. If you're going to be a builder and an entrepreneur, you're going to go change reality. Like when we started back, 3 years ago when I became principal, I'm like, I have to build an engine that teaches kids 10 times faster, right? And I'm like, no, we got the learning science, this Gen AI, it's totally going to be doable, right? And yes, you can do that. But if you analyzed it, it wasn't obvious. I think today people still don't really believe it. But that is what you do. You go out there and you say, I'm going to go build a school that people love, that, all those crazy things that you read about, entrepreneurs go make that a reality. And that's what's awesome. And I believe just, are they made or formed? We believe in our high school that you can teach kids this skill. And if they're following their passion, they all have ideas where they think they can, put a dent in the universe. And we just need to help them do that and give them the skills to do that.
Why do you think your brain worked that way? Why was your neural network wired to the fact that you looked at something almost impossible and thought, yeah, we're going to do that?
I think humans naturally are like that. And I believe the standard school system sort of beats that out of them. If you talk, so starting in middle school, a lot of people come into our schools, right? We had a few hundred people join. We have schools now all over the country, and they joined, in the last 10 weeks ago when school started, and they come into middle school and they're consumers, what we call consumers, right? They scroll TikTok, they play Fortnite all day, right? They've been caught in that dopamine, evil screen time hook. And we run everybody through an exercise where we say, what are your values, right? Go do a values exercise. Do a Japanese ikigai, if you know what those are.
Sure.
What do you love? What are you good at? What does the world need, right? What do you get paid for? And do a vision board, if you think as a way to think about it. These kids' vision board is not, I want to scroll TikTok all day or be a consumer. They want to go change the world. They believe they can, right? They want to. They just don't have the skills. And then after they create all this vision board of who they want to be, it's always awesome. Kids want to be awesome. They want to do great things. And then we make them do a 168-hour project where they track every hour of the week. And you are what you do. And that's when they have this realization, this middle school girl comes up and she's like, I guess I'm going to be the world's best TikTok scroller. Right. But the disappointment in her voice when she was like, I just did my vision board of who I want to be. And I realize, right, I've been caught in this consumer mindset and I'm trapped. And that is what our job in middle and high school is, to teach kids the skills to go be a builder, to go be a creator, because they all want to do that. It's not that this generation, right, it's like, oh, there's no ambition. They don't want to. They want to. Our school system just doesn't give them the skills to make that transition.
So have you found that you can take your brain back from being hijacked by this attention economy we're in?
100%. So another example, this was probably a month ago, where a student came up to me where this was one of somebody who worked super hard. This is the other part about hard work. 10 weeks, he came up to me, he's like, 10 weeks ago, if you had said, sign a contract, I'll pay you $100 an hour for the rest of your life, and you will just play video games. That's it until you die. He's like, I would have sold my soul and signed that contract. Right? That was it. He was caught and he was sort of happy. It's like literally he was signing up to live in the Matrix. Right? And he was totally willing to do it. And he's like, today, and he was presenting to the other high school kids at Alpha. And he's like, today, I don't even have time to play video games. Right? Because he is building, right? And so you absolutely, all these kids, but what they need to work on, if you put them in school for 6 hours a day in homework, you've made an environment where they're like, okay, my escape is to scroll TikTok and play video games because I'm not building, I'm not engaged, I'm not doing hard things. Like the third thing that I need parents to really believe, that a lot of parents don't believe, you got to love school, right? You got to learn, crush academics in 2 hours a day. The third is the key to your child's happiness is high standards. And high standards are when they engage, they want to engage in hard things. They want to go build an app that's 100 million kids are going to use. That's going to, right? They want to go build that. And that's hard, and they know it's hard, right? But they will, right? And that's why they'll come in and put the effort in, right? If you think about athletics, I don't know if you have an athletic background, but athletics, the athletic ethos in America, we actually believe all these things. We just don't believe when you apply to academics, we think it the opposite. So Westlake, right? Parents in Austin are like, I want my kid on the Westlake football team because they're going to be state champions. It's going to be the hardest thing my son ever does, right? They're going to work. They do go in the summer for practice, right? They're in the weight room at night, right? They are doing the hardest thing they've ever done to be on the Westlake football team, right? But they'll remember it the rest of their life. But if you said that same thing, right, and said that's academics, right, or what the school day should be like, they're like, no, definitely not. I'm not going to have my kid do that. It's only in after-school athletics where we believe that.
It's so good. I mean, I hope you guys expand past even high schoolers at some point. Or to your point that somebody listening right now hears this, and somebody who has built billion-dollar businesses is getting so fired up about changing people's mentality in education. And what I'll say is, like, it's the same thing I see with a lot of employees in our companies. There's actually some sort of disease or virus where we want to get by. We kind of want to get by. We do have the vision board maybe of a really cool life, but this idea of hard things as the key to loving life is something that we subscribe to. Here, our first line at Contrarian Thinking's Creed is those who say it's impossible should get out of the way of those of us who are doing it. And so we believe that deeply, but people don't last here very long if they don't believe that. And I like kind of proactively will say to the team, if you ever say like, we can't do that, or that's not my job, like you're fired. And like you're welcome too, because hopefully it snaps you out of it and you go somewhere else. Do you find this brought, like not even in the kids, but in the talent, in the guides that you're hiring, in the employees in your companies? Like, am I jaded in that I'm saying there does appear to be, there's like these two worlds. One world where there's builders in Austin, like our mutual friend Brendan and, Dino, who I think you know from Saronic too, and they're just animals. And there's this one, and then there's this other side where there's so many people that I just want to shake them and be like, you have so much potential. What the fuck's going on? You're in your own way.
That world I completely agree with, and we believe every kid, right, can be a creator. The issue is they haven't found what their passion is. So when they come here and they're not engaged, it's because this isn't the hook, right? We talk about every kid has a passion for learning. It's just not always academics. So back to my story of my dad, I was a shirker in school. I was the slacker who I wasn't trying to do impossible things, right? I'm the one who was disengaged all the way through school, right? And then I drop out. My dad's like, you're a moron. But then there's a follow-on to that, which is 18 months later, he sits down with me and he's like, I'm so glad you dropped out, right? I'm so glad you dropped out because we'd been working 100-hour weeks, living under the desk, right? And he's like, you have found what you love. And he's like, before this, I was worried that you were a lazy little shit, right? And a parent's terrified of having that, right? And that's in school, that's what I was, right? But then once I found what I wanted, right? And you just take off. And we look at every student that we have. That's our job, is to find what is it that lights them up, right? And that's what why you have to say kids must love school more than vacation, because you found it. Anything else, it's a parent pushing their values on the kid, not what the kid wants to do. And so instead, you're like, oh, you want to build video games? We're going to let you build video games. You want to write sports? So we are starting, right, a sports academy where if you love sports, right, you get to start sports in the afternoon, right? And you still have to do the rigor of the academics in the morning in the 2 hours, right? But those kids are going to be the best academic performing athletes in this country. But they're also going to engage in be a D1 bound middle schooler or a D1 aspirational middle schooler. And it's always tying things in to what the kids' passions are that unlock it. Like one of our life skills that we teach in the afternoon, teamwork and leadership, entrepreneurship and financial literacy, socialization and relationship building, storytelling, public speaking, and grit and hard work, right? Those are the things when we say, in the AI world, those are the life skills that kids really need. And so take public speaking. Okay, you go to a 10-year-old and you're like, public speaking. They're going to be like, okay, right? They're not going to engage. You're like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you? It's such a valuable life skill. Oh my God, look what you can do. And the parents are lecturing and it's terrible. You say, wait, post-game press conference, right? You want to be able to go crush your post-game press conference. So at our sports academy, literally, we don't call it public speaking. We actually teach them how to do a post-game press conference. And they're like, and they become really good, right? They become great public speakers on that, right? Because that is their hook that engages them. If you talk about, oh, you have to learn all this math and financial literacy, like roll your eyes. You're like, we're negotiating your Nike contract, right? And all of a sudden, all the skills they need to learn, right? Let's take on the entrepreneurship side, gross margin, okay? What could be more boring to a fifth grader? Our fifth graders launch a food truck, right? And this was a day, this was last year. I go up to them and I'm like, why did you pick breakfast food, as your product for your food truck? And they're like, have you seen the gross margins on breakfast food? And I was just like, okay, this is so awesome, right? And they couldn't have been more excited about the business.
Nothing hotter than gross margins.
Right? Yeah. And they are just sitting there and they are loving it and they're talking about it and they're thrilled and they're having to learn teamwork.
How old is this kid?
So these are fifth and sixth graders. So 2 years ago.
You're like 15? No,
12,
you're like 12.
Yeah, you're like 11, 12 years old.
I don't have kids. Does it show?
Oh, sorry. No, yeah. So yes, here's 11-year-olds who are out there and back to teamwork, right? And so they would go to like car dealerships and set up the food truck, right? It's all breakfast food. They'd make $1,000, but they were dealing with real world business things where one of the kids, the kid who's on the grill doesn't show up. And they're like, oh my gosh, how are we going to be able to do this? And all these kind of things. So all these kind of things you can do in the afternoon where you ignite kids' passion, right? That's the key. And I believe as we look, these skills that we talk about where you do the values chart in your 168 hours, kids will use that for the rest of their life. Those are the life skills because they will somewhere in their career. Me, 3 years ago, right? I'm like, oh, I guess I'm doing a big pivot from software to education. I'm going to go be a principal. Right? And how do I go get the skills and engage in it and all those? And so I think the skills we're teaching today are what adults will need going forward for sure.
Yeah, because it seems like you need both, or you can use either as a lever. And maybe explain it to me differently. But yes, kids need to love school, or they need to or you need to love what you're doing. But isn't it also that like you need to learn to love the game, or like you find what you love inside of it? Because it also seems like you have like, pure, whatever you call that, intrinsic love for X activity. And then you have like extrinsic love for an incentive such as dollars or outcome or reputation or whatever. And so do you need to play both of those?
So absolutely, which is you like what you're good at.
Yeah.
And so one of the things, like why people in athletics, why they hold kids back is they're going to be a little bigger, right? And then they're going to be better. And then because they're better, they like it because they're getting accolades and then they get more playtime and you get that positive
just
cycle
like
loop.
Pavlov's dog.
Yeah, and you just start getting into it and
Mm-hmm.
people want to do things they're great at.
Yeah.
In middle school, these girls would have said, no, I'm never going to do that. But now they're like, yeah, I can totally do that. And they want to stay because we showed them they can be good at it, right? People don't want to do things they're bad at. So if you're bad at something, right, it's how do you bootstrap them to get better? Right. And that's why the old academic system doesn't work is once you get behind or you are labeled bad, right? If you're a C student in third grade, there's like a 90% chance you'll be a C student for the rest of your life, right? And that's not, there's no inherent brain chemistry around that. That's just a systems issue, right? The way we design school. But we can take those same C students and make them top 1% and show them, no, you could actually be really good at this. And we think that's true for all the life skills as well. Right. Well, the Tough Mudder one. There were there's some new, 3 of these middle school girls, right? So they're, 12-year-olds. And, I asked them, they were new to the school and it was the week before the end of the session. And I was like, hey, break's coming up. Are you really excited? And they're like, no. And inside, because they didn't want to go on break. And I was like, inside, I was happy, right? I did cheer because they wanted to keep going to school and not go on break. And I said, well, if you could wave a magic wand and fix anything about the school, what would you do? They're like, we wouldn't have to run the adult course for the Tough Mudder, right? They're like, that's so hard, right? But their guide who's motivating and showing them they can do it, I was like, go talk to some of the high schoolers who did it, right? And all the high schoolers have a picture of all their whole team, right? Their whole classmate, they're all covered in mud, right? And they're all,
I've done it. It's miserable.
Right. But they're all there as a team and it's a team picture and they all still have it on their wall, right? Because they did something they didn't think they could do, right? And that kind of thing. You have to bootstrap these kids. That's what school is, right? You're bootstrapping them to show them they can be capable here. And so a lot of these things, and when you talk about getting people into the right roles and what they should do, it is this Japanese ikigai of you're trying to figure out what are you good at and what do you love? And sometimes you're like, I really love this, but I'm not good at it. And on some things, you can bootstrap them into it, right? Like, okay, let's get you good enough so you can do it. And then once you hit that, right, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm capable.
So does intelligence have a big predictor on success?
This is a good question. So in K through 12 today, the best students, there's actually two, it's all coded on two things, IQ and Big Five conscientiousness. School today in a time-based system with a teacher in front of a classroom, you basically need to be high IQ and a conscient grinder, right? You have to be a natural grinder. And our view is I have to get this out to 1 billion kids, right? So I can't have those two limitations. So on the product side, we're like, how do we break those two things? So back to learning science, a mastery-based, individualized, personalized lesson plan solves the IQ issue to an extent, which is we can't make everybody, I'm going to do quantum computing and figure it out. But for sure, in K through 8, the K through 8 curriculum, if you take 95% of America, they could all be top 1%. That there's just nothing intellectually challenging enough, if done with a mastery-based education, with an individualized tutor, that they couldn't get to top 1%, right? I'm never going to be a nuclear physicist at Stanford, right? I don't have that IQ, right? So there are some upper bounds where it really matters, but for fundamentally of just teaching our kids, that's not true. But in a time-based educational system, it is. Because, when you're in 6th grade and there's a hole where you miss some knowledge, you basically need more IQ to bridge the gaps. But if you have an individualized tutor, it's going to go fill those gaps for you. The second on Big Five conscientiousness, if you're a natural grinder, you're all set, right? We use our motivation model to compensate, which is how do I motivate this kid to grind, right? And get through it and do the hard work. And so and motivations, lots of different things.
Is there a formula for motivation?
So we spend, when we look at educating a kid, there's 2 parts to educating a kid. The first is, and 90% of it is having a motivated student. And so our schools are designed, 90% of my design work and our emphasis is on motivating. 10%, which is the second thing you need to put them in lessons of the correct difficulty, right? Which AI tutors do great. Right? They'll figure out what you know and don't know and say, look, I know your age grade is 6th grade, but you need 4th grade math. And I'm just going to give you 4th grade math, fill it up. But now I have to get you to want to do the 4th grade math. 90% that's motivation. So the number one motivator, like we have a huge motivation framework on our schools. The number one motivator and the name of our product is time back. Give kids their time back. There is nothing more than money, more than anything. Time back is the biggest motivator. And and so that's why we're 2 hours. If you want 6 hours a day in homework, right? If you take the Westlake honors track, right? You can't pay those kids enough to be happy. But if you go to those same kids like in our high school and say, it's 2 hours a day. If you want like 1550 plus on the SAT, it's 3 hours in high school. But that's it. And then you get all your afternoons for 4 years to work on your passion project. That motivates students, right? Mm-hmm. If you go to our sports academy and you're like, okay, I'm going to give you the whole afternoon, right, to play basketball, but you have to engage in the app for 2 hours. The kids are like, that's a fair trade. And just as a product manager, the story, my first week as principal, McKinsey and Brian had started it. They're like, okay, we'll let you be principal, but you got to live up to the commitments. They have to love school. And so I go to the 5th graders my first week and I'm like, you guys love school? And they're like, no. They're brand new. They're like, no. I'm like, okay, what would make you love school? They're like, less school. And I'm like, how much less? They're like, none. And I'm like, okay, that seems a little light, and we literally negotiated it, right? I was like, so 2 hours a day. Would you engage in these apps? If I give you an app for 2 hours a day, if then 4 hours a day was awesome, fun stuff you loved? And they're like, okay, that seems fair. Right, that's a fair trade. And so that's literally how we got to 2 hours. That was like your first user group. People were like, how do we get 2 hours? And they want some sophisticated analysis. I was like, okay, we got 2 hours and these kids say it's okay. Then I went to my learning science team and I said, can we, fill their brain with all the awesome knowledge they need in 2 hours? And they're like, absolutely, we totally can do it. And so that was sort of the beginning of it and that's why it was codename Time Back, but we actually made it the real name is give kids their time back. Then once you give kids their time back, there's tons of other motivations, right? So our teachers, right, we call them guides and coaches, they don't teach 7th grade science because the AI tutor does that better, right? So instead, they are hired for motivational and emotional support. And their job is to say, how do I motivate this kid to greatness? How do I get him to do hard things, right? And what are the things? And sometimes, in kindergarten, it's like, here's a sticker. Right? And the kid's like, oh my God, it's a sticker, right? Couldn't be happier, right? 8th grader's a little harder. Stickers don't work as well, right? But you're like, oh, the time on your passion project, right? Oh, you want to do a Broadway music. Wait, you want to write a book. Oh, wait, you want to go become an equestrian, right? And we'll let you out in the afternoon off time to go do that, right? Whatever the motivation is that will get them, you have a whole range, everything from time, there is money, financials and incentive, privileges, right? So like mobile squad. Yeah. And the Broadway privileges is also just freedoms in the school, right? If you crush all your academics and hit some goals, you get mobile squad, at the end of the session, and mobile squad gets to go on some trip somewhere, right? Or you get the privilege of learning in a beanbag, right? Like the younger kids where you're like, okay, you know how to learn on your own. You've become a self-driven learner. You don't require a teacher or an adult to, babysit you. You learn on your own. You have the freedom. Like our middle schoolers get to go to the 2nd floor where there's, less restriction and less rules, and they can sit in a beanbag and sit on their computer and learn or do whatever. So there's all these different things around motivation that allows kids to learn. Off-campus lunch, right? Everybody, younger kids, the number one motivator to the younger kids is lunch with their guide, right? They love their guides, right? How we measure our guides and teachers at the younger, like a kindergarten, you're like, do you love your guide? As you get older, the question we ask kids is, every adult had 1 or 2 teachers who transformed their lives. Is your guide that for you?
Whoa.
Right? And that is the standard. And that's what our guides do, is their job is to say, right, I'm going to help you achieve your goals, right? Your dreams. That's what I do all day, because I don't have to sit in front of the class lecturing or grade quizzes or whatever. I get to connect with the kids, right? And people talk about, okay, this is like AI is going to change the role and teachers are going to change in our world, right? But teachers did not become teachers to grade 7th grade science quizzes. They became teachers to transform kids' lives. And in our world, and why everybody wants to be an alpha guide, we had 80,000 people apply for our jobs. They want to be an alpha guide because they get to spend their entire day connecting with kids and helping them transform their lives into who they want to be.
You seem to have pretty high EQ. Would your wife disagree?
Yeah, my kids would too. Both my daughters. I have 2 daughters. And they both
I found in tech, it's not always a huge correlation between the two. Yeah. But now are you the same person you were when you were building Trilogy and these other companies now?
No, if 90s Joe, right?
Yeah.
And versus Family Man Joe, right, is totally different, right? And I could not be the principal if I did not spend 20 years raising my daughters and being a family man, getting married.
What were you like back then?
Then I was absolutely your consummate 90s tech bro guy. And
what does that mean? You were just intense and focused?
Intense and focused, and relationship and the EQ part, like a 0. What are you talking about? Just if it was a pure mathematical equation, well, obviously, logically, this is the answer, do this, right? And it was very much there. And this concept that relationship building, right, and building out your network, right, is so valuable, right? I mean, right, socialization, relationship building is one of our key life skills we teach the kids. I had 0 of that. Right, back in the 90s. And I'm like, why would you do that? I'm just going to build a better product or whatever. And the human component was, so far down